Hello. It is I, Sweet J, coming to you live from my apartment in the four-state area. Probably not the four-state area you're thinking of. The kind of ugly cousin four-state, which is Missouri, Kansas, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. They don't line up perfectly like the other four-state that you're probably thinking of, but it's what they call this area. We're the four-state area. So that is where I'm doing this podcast from. This is the first episode of this podcast that I'm doing with myself. We'll see how that works out for me. I feel like there's a lot of people that think they can start podcasts, and hopefully a fewer number of people that think they can do a podcast solo. And most of them are probably awful people with very inflated views of themselves. Time will tell. If I'm good at doing a podcast by myself, or if I'm one of those, narcissistic podcast host that is definitely not good at this. Well, this will be especially interesting because people who know me, if they were to describe me, perhaps one of the things they'd say about me is Sweet J often forgets what he's talking about in mid-sentence and will hold up an entire conversation and will demand silence while he tries to remember what it is he was talking about. So that definitely makes this a very courageous act on my part. But yeah, let's get into what we're going to talk about today, I guess. I've got a few notes here. This week I began my summer classes, my 3 online summer classes. One of the classes I'm taking is oral communication, kind of one of those gen ed courses that I needed to take. And I guess the whole point of it is to develop public speaking skills. So that's kind of fitting, I guess. It honestly didn't occur to me until just now that maybe I should wait to podcast until after I take this class. Maybe I'll have skills. All right, but you know what? Maybe this is a good way to do it, because over the course of the next 8 weeks, perhaps you'll be able to notice a strong improvement because of this class. We'll see. Another class I'm taking is a social work class called The Happiness Project, which, to my understanding, is just a class where we research and learn about effective methods of being happy, maintaining happiness. I'm not really sure. I kind of only took it because I needed another upper division class to take, and I've taken at least one other social work class before. I could kind of see myself being a social worker. Maybe it sounds awful most of the time, but so does all of the other career paths that I'm currently considering. So I can't write it off. Seems like a cool class. Third class I'm taking is educational psychology. And the instructor for this class, I've met her before. I've never had her as a teacher. She's not that much older than I am. I think she's only 36 or something. And she's clearly like a genius of some kind, I think, because she has a doctorate and she's got a bunch of credentials. And I hesitate to say this and make any sort of deal of this, but she talks funny. She has a weird voice, not weird in a bad way either. Just as soon as you'd hear it, you'd be like, oh, that's not how most 36-year-old white women talk. But I mean, like, she's not stupid or anything. She's definitely very smart. So to me, that says like, oh, she's like a genius probably, but like she was not exactly gifted in other areas of her life, which is why she's teaching and not doing something better. I don't know. I'm kind of talking out of my bootay, but whatever. Anyway, she is also very clearly, I don't want to say high strung. Strict might not be the best word either, but she takes the class. She takes teaching very, very, very seriously. The class is already kind of more than what I bargained for. I'm not anticipating getting higher than a B in that class. She definitely expects us to work on that class. Her words, not mine, 12 to 18 hours per week. I don't know about you, but I don't have even like 7 hours to spend on one of those classes. That won't be happening. But she seems to think that we're all capable of doing that. And I was going through all the material yesterday for this first week, right? And it's taking forever. It's all these like long videos that have nothing to do with the course exactly. It's all like syllabus related stuff, like plagiarism, all that. I'm sitting here watching a 52-minute long video on plagiarism. That isn't even her. It's like a video that she brought in from YouTube. Somebody else explaining plagiarism. And at first I was like, that's fine, whatever. I'm not even like, I know what plagiarism is. I'll just let it play so that I get the credit, all that. But no, there's like questions woven out, like quiz questions woven throughout this video that I have to answer. And clearly I was already a little stressed out, a little anxious about like the new classes and the time demands. And my answers started getting more and more snarky, to a point where later that day, that night, I got a message from her kind of like sussing out like what's going on, because you seem to be having trouble with this. And also like I didn't do well on these quizzes because I wasn't actually like paying attention, because it's a long ass video. Who's got time to like pay attention to that on the first day? It's ridiculous. And I didn't respond until this morning, because I knew that I was like heated still. I was like kind of angry that she'd expect so much and stressed. And I've been trying to become more self-aware of myself. I guess that's what the definition of self-awareness is, being aware of yourself. Especially when it comes to like anger and like getting upset and like saying things, writing things, doing things in that state of rage, I guess. So the best I can do at this point is not respond to people when I'm in that state. That's the best I can do. So I got up this morning and like went to go respond. And I typed it out. This is another thing I've been trying to work on. I have a tendency to send the first draft of anything, especially when I'm in an argument. I'll just send the first draft. But I've learned that it's better to always give it like 3 drafts, and then, maybe then you can send it. Because my first draft is always like way more like it's articulate, but you can tell that I've got an attitude, which isn't a good way to engage with, your teacher on the second day of school. And so I did, like, I typed it up and I read through it, and yeah, like half of the text was like totally unnecessary for me to send. And I'm really happy with myself that I read through it a number of times before I was like, yeah, you don't need that middle sentence at all. There was absolutely no reason to like essentially call your teacher out for making you watch a 52-minute video on plagiarism. just leave it out. There's a better way to deflect the conversation, because realistically she's not doing anything wrong. She's doing her job. It's me who's like reacting to the stress of starting something new, I guess. So I don't need to like affect her that way. I don't know. And so yeah, I took it out and I sent it, and I was able to finish up most of the rest of this week's coursework for all 3 of the classes, today. So within like the first 2 days. So obviously there's going to be harder weeks ahead, but like just a reminder to myself of like, you have time, you've got free time. It's fine. Like you can take heart that over the next 8 weeks you will have the time available to do your due diligence to all 3 of these classes, especially the one that seems to be the most challenging. And yeah, it went well. Like I've had great interactions with all 3 of my teachers now. And yeah, I don't need to be so like stressed out and angry every time I start a new class or start a new semester or whatever. It is what it is. It's how it goes, man. Yeah. And then so that brings me to my my next point here, which is just this idea of self-efficacy. And I'm going to butcher this definition, but self-efficacy to me just means that you've been able to, you've proved to yourself that you have the abilities, talents, whatever, to accomplish whatever is before you. And some people might be listening, be thinking like, yeah, duh, doesn't everyone have self-efficacy for everything? And it's like, no, obviously not. Like everyone probably encounters something that they're like, I don't know if I can do this. Even if it's something you've done like a million times, you still might have that, like, just that, whatever, that barrier, that mental barrier of like, I don't know if I can do this again. Like, I don't know if I have what it takes, not just like emotionally and all that, but like, I don't know if I know how to read this chapter or something, and for me, school has always been, I don't know if it's like my biggest self-efficacy barrier thing. There's probably something else. But to me, school has always been like the most obvious. I to this day, I can remember the first F I ever got. And, I mean, not really. I have no idea how old I was. I'm pretty sure my teacher was, it was either Miss Press or is the one right before that. I got an F on something. It was probably like spelling or some no idea what grade I was in. Anyway, ever since then, it was a total paradigm shift for me, because I didn't realize you could like fail something in school. I just assumed like if you aren't good at something, you'll just keep cracking at it and eventually you'll get it. I didn't realize that like you could fail a paper or fail a test or fail an assignment and it would have like long-term negative effects. Didn't realize you could fail a class. I didn't realize you could like fail a grade, which I don't think I ever failed a grade. I've failed classes, and I've gotten kicked out of school for bad grades. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I can't speak too much on like the abilities of my teachers in the past. Like some people would say, yeah, you just had bad teachers. They didn't understand your genius or something. I don't know. I can't speak to that too much. I'd like to. What? Sorry, my cat is just. Yes. Okay. He just wanted to sniff the microphone. Anyway, self-efficacy in school. My whole life, it's kind of just been like one thing after another. and it kind of created this inner not monologue, not, an inner barrier to self-efficacy when it comes to school. I just always assume like I'm not a good student. I don't test well. I don't know how to pay attention to stuff, and I'm just not a good student. Maybe I'm stupid. I've definitely had thoughts to myself of like, maybe I have an intellectual disability because like this is just not clicking. And there was one time in high school, it was like during an English class, and I think all we had to do to leave the class that day was write down the definition of ambition. And even though I knew what ambition was, for the life of me, I could not think of a single word to even start my definition. It just didn't happen. And I'm sure I was just thinking about something else. I was thinking about like a crush or whatever. I just couldn't do it. And that happens enough times over enough years, you're gonna have like a semi-permanent view about yourself and towards school or whatever that thing is, that you just don't have it. You don't have it what it takes. You don't have the abilities or whatever. And so that's where self-efficacy comes into play, is because at some point you got to get over that. At some point, you've got to take the plunge, and either you've got to develop the abilities or you've got to like get over that barrier. That's like keeping you from that self-efficacy, that proof to yourself that, oh yeah, I can do this. Like I did have the abilities all along, or maybe I have the abilities now, or whatever. And it's so good because like once you have that self-efficacy and like it can't be taken away, once you've gotten to that point where it can't be taken away from you by anyone, like it's yours. If you lose it, it's because you got rid of it. Once you have it, you feel like you can conquer the world in a sense, and you can dream a lot bigger. And so that's a big reason that when I got kicked out of school, kicked out of college, when I was 20 years old, that I didn't go back for a long time. And then when I did, it was only one class at a time. If I tried to take more, I'd have, panic attacks. I'd drop classes. I'd freak out. I would just straight up just not even attempt. And I would start to imagine a life where I wasn't a student anymore, or where I didn't need school to have dreams. And I mean that's true to some extent. That's a topic for another conversation. But I would be like, well, I guess I can't be a pastor or a teacher or a counselor anymore. I either need to fall in love with the food service industry, because that's all I'm ever going to be good at, or good enough at, or I need to find something else. And luckily that did lead me to other, trains of thought, other philosophies about life, about how like happiness and contentment doesn't need to come from a career or a job or anything. It unfortunately led me to a place of, well, the only way I can be happy is if I'm married and have kids and have like that kind of life. And that led to its own pitfalls. Again, topic for another pod, I guess. But it wasn't until I went back to school last fall, and I went back full time in person. I was really excited about it, because I think I'd kind of convinced myself that part of the reason I was so bad at school as like a younger adult was because I was taking online classes, and those suck. I can't stand an online class. I need to be in person. I need that connection. I need to be able to look my teacher in the eye and tell them why this matters to me, and so yeah, I went back to school and I got straight A's. I think I got like a 3.9 at the end of the semester, and like just it didn't happen at the end. It happened like a month in. I started getting that self-efficacy back and started realizing like, oh, I'm not a bad student. Like all I need is a reason for the class or this assignment or whatever, for this to be relevant to me. I just need to find one thing about it that I'm like, that's why this matters. This will help me be a better mental health counselor someday because this, or, something about it that will like keep my interest. But as soon as I lose interest in something, or if there was never interest to begin with, there's no motivation. I can't do it. So that's why it's been really important for me to pick classes that actually interest me. That's why I'm getting a general studies degree and not like a psych degree, because I just know there's going to be classes that don't feel relevant to me, that I just don't care about, and I won't try. But yeah, self-efficacy, it's a good thing. If whatever it is, we should all be trying to like build up our self-efficacy towards things, especially school. I think maybe that's like one of our biggest problems in our society, is that like we just lack the tools to give kids like self-efficacy when it comes to doing well in school. And I always think about something a coworker said to me when I was working at a coffee shop, because we were always getting into trouble about like things not being done, and we were both like pretty decent workers and all that. And he just said to me one day, he's like, whether I give 10% or 100%, they treat me like I'm giving them 0%, so why even try at all? And yeah, I totally get that. I think that was a sentiment I felt often as a student. Like, I try so hard and I still end up failing. So why even try? So yeah, we need self-efficacy. And if you didn't get to develop that as a child or a young adult, I hope eventually you develop it for something. It doesn't have to be school, can be anything. Kind of switching gears a little bit. I live in a pretty small town. I'm not going to say where exactly, though, I guess. I bet it's going to be very easy to figure it out. I'm also not using my name for a reason. I guess I don't want a paper trail, even though we definitely have the technology to figure it out almost instantly with very little effort. But whatever. I guess I don't know. It's yeah, whatever. One of the coolest small independent businesses in this town that I live in is closing down. After 5 years of being in business, about 5 or 6 years, I think. Is a little independent. What does that word even mean? It's probably obvious that it's an independent store. Not a store. It's like a small movie theater. There's max like 24 seats in this movie theater, but it's got a really nice restaurant. It's one of the few restaurants in town that has like a decent vegan menu. It's got like cocktails, and it's just like a nice hangout spot for a lot of people. I've played shows there. I've seen shows there. They do comedy there sometimes. Just like a really cool spot. It always reminded me of just like a cool hip spot in Minneapolis or something. It just felt very out of place in this part of the country. And I was just always happy to go there and like support it. But it's closing down now. The last day that it's open is this Sunday, I think. So it closes down this week. And it's just highlighted and reminded me of just a trend in this town and probably a lot of towns like it in America. It just like cannot support, local businesses at all. Like it's got this town has every fast food place you can imagine. It's got a billion different grocery stores. It's every chain, every like national chain for every product that you can imagine is here. But in the time that I've lived here, in the 4.5 years that I've been a resident here, I've seen so many local businesses come and go. And the ones that are still open, like you can tell they're barely hanging on. And I just think that sucks because I don't need 2 Whataburgers in this town. There's literally in this town, I'm not including the surrounding towns because it'd be a lot more if I was including them, but in this town there's 4 Walmarts, 2 Supercenter Walmarts and 2 like marketplace Walmarts. They've got 2 Aldis, a Target, just a bunch of, they've got everything, multiple of everything. But for whatever reason, we just cannot seem to keep the local businesses alive. And apparently the city council just announced that they're debating the construction of this like massive, I don't even know what it is. I think it's going to have like tennis courts and just like rec areas. It's supposed to be this like $300 million project. And they're saying it's going to like bring more people to the town. It's going to just add a lot of value to the town, all this. And maybe they're right. Like, who knows? Maybe they've got it figured out. Maybe that is the right move. But I just kept thinking like 300 mil. And I mean, our taxes are going to go up to pay for that, obviously. Like, it's going to come from somewhere. And it's like you've got all these, people that were born and raised here that just want to start their own cool little business that would probably do well in a lot of other places, in big cities, perhaps. And rather than like try to figure out ways to cultivate a community where those types of businesses can thrive, we're basically saying like, you're SOL, dude, we're gonna pour all of our eggs into this basket instead. And that sucks. I mean, like, even if it makes better economic sense, like on paper, do we not all see that just like from like an aesthetic perspective, like it sucks? Like, that's gonna make your town look ugly. Like, I want to come into any size town and see just a ton of local businesses. I find chains to be ugly. There's a street in this town that's mostly chains. It runs the entire length of the town, and it's where all the fast food places are. It's right off the highway, obviously, and it's the most ugly. It's the worst street to drive on. It has so many vehicle accidents every week. It just sucks. I avoid it constantly, and I'm upset every time I have to drive on it. Yeah, that sucks. And I think I'm sure if you took a poll of the entire country, I'm sure we would all generally agree that we don't want to live in towns like that. We want to live in towns where, like, if our neighbor has a cool idea for a product or a business or whatever, that they can go out and pursue that, and it can be supported. I don't know. I know I'm missing a lot of information, and my perspective isn't the only one. It's not the best one, all that. But that's the best I got right now, I guess. I guess the reason I've been thinking about it is because it's ironic that that one of my favorite businesses would be closing down this week, and I'd be feeling this like, this town is dying. It's been dying. It's going to continue to die. It's a dying town. I've been feeling that way. And so, yeah, it's ironic that for the last like few weeks, couple months, I've like made the decision in my heart that I'm going to move after I graduate in December. I'm going to move probably to Milwaukee, although I could move anywhere, but I'm going to move. And I'm never coming back. There's nothing for me here to ever come back to. And so in a lot of ways, it's like this town is dying because I'm leaving it, I guess. And so it's going to be dead to me. So in a weird up kind of way, I'm glad that all the local businesses are dying. Let me try to flesh this out a little bit. You know how, like, when you break up with someone, and even though you have, like, maybe you have no ill will towards them, you also kind of hope you never, ever, ever see them with someone else. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of the same deal. It's like if I'm going to leave this town, I'm very happy. I'm moving away. This town has sucked so bad. More on that later. If I also just, when I leave, I hope that all of my favorite places also close down so that like no one else gets to enjoy them, and like I got to be the last to enjoy them or something. I know that's like very up, but I also think it's kind of a relatable feeling, at least in terms of like relationships, right? I think people have done that before with like interpersonal relationships, but it's kind of odd to be feeling that way towards a town and its businesses, I guess. But yeah, I know that's just kind of an immature thought that hopefully I discard, soon or whatever. But yeah, I've been feeling this, like I can't wait to be done with school, and I can't wait to move, and I can't wait to like end this chapter. It's probably like in that happiness project class I was taking, one of the things we had to do this week was evaluate our current level of happiness and all that. And I kind of went into detail about how like, the last couple months and honestly the last couple years been really tough. Probably like the most upset I've ever been. Maybe not. Who knows? It hasn't been great, but like the last couple months, pretty much since March or April-ish, and it's beginning of June now, this is probably like the happiest I've ever been, and there's probably a lot of reasons for that, but I think one of them is, and I put this like in my response for the week, I was like, even though there's been a ton of setbacks, there's a lot of reasons for me to be upset to this day. I've never been happier, even though I'm not surrounded by any of my friends or family. Again, there's plenty of reasons to be upset still, but I've never been happier because I'm doing things that are kind of contributing to my self-efficacy. I'm being an effective student, and that's huge. That brings me a lot of like, yeah, you got this, buddy, but then there's also, even though it's still relatively far away, it's set like about 7 months away, I've got like a light at the end of the tunnel that I'm really excited for, and it's going to be scary. Like I hate moving. I hate it. It's like one of the worst things I do to myself is move. But I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to like step out into the unknown. It'll probably be like one of the scariest moves I ever make because there are so many unknowns. But I know it's the right thing to do. I know it's the best thing for me to do. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll be back next week.